Hello and welcome to Sports Fan Entertainment. Welcome to Tighten Up Thursdays here on Sports Fan Entertainment. This is the new series here on Sports Fan Entertainment where we talk about the week's news for the Tennessee Titans and then preview the upcoming game during the regular season. And luckily for us, it is the regular season, so we will be previewing this week's game against the Oakland Raiders, getting into this week's news, discussing some playoff scenarios because there's a lot of playoff scenarios I've been running through the ESPN playoff machine this week, and then I will answer some questions, and then I'll get out of here. We'll go anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes every week during the off season, maybe like 10, because there probably won't be much to talk about in a lot of weeks, but for right now, there is a lot to talk about, so we're going to go 20 to probably 30 minutes today. So we have the Oakland Raiders this week. Okay, and I read all the comments. I read all the live comments, all the actual comments on my game recap for last week's video, and even the Jacksonville Jaguars video, 2 weeks before that? A lot of people believe that I've been a negative Nancy as of late. Now, here's the thing, people. A lot of people want to say that I am not a Tennessee Titans fan, right? Because I can be a negative Nancy. Look, if I'm not a Tennessee Titans fan, what am I doing? I must love wasting my time. For the past, I don't know how many years I've been doing this now, I must love coming on here and wasting my time. Oh, I'm a Tennessee Titan fan, all right. I love this team. Now, do I have battered fan syndrome? Oh, hell yeah! And for good reason. I have battered fan syndrome. And remember, I was the guy that was coming on here before the season saying we were going to go 11-5, make the playoffs, make the divisional round. And that is almost still a viable scenario. Not going to go 11-5. Well, it's actually still a scenario, but I think we can all agree on that. But through this season, yeah, I've been a little battered, and through the past decade, I've definitely been battered even before then. I just want us to keep expectations low, especially when it comes to this football game, because I am having some flashbacks, ladies and gentlemen, because even I, in the game recap that I made, said, yeah, we'll beat the Oakland Raiders next week, no problem. But the more I'm thinking about it, I'm saying, oh, wait a minute, this might be a problem. In fact, this is actually a serious problem indeed. Let me recall you to 2011. Tennessee Titans are, I want to say at this point, 7-6 in the season. And they have 3 games left on their schedule. They have the Indianapolis Colts, they have the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they have the Houston Texans. The Indianapolis Colts are 0-13. They are tanking for Andrew Luck. We all presume that this is going to be a victory for the Tennessee Titans, that they are going to get it done. They'll move on to Jacksonville, who that year was a little better than the Colts, but also a bad team. And then finally take on the Houston Texans, which I want to say would not have been for the AFC Championship, AFC South Championship, but could have been. I'd have to go back and look at that scenario, but I'm pretty sure it would not have been. But at the very least, would have earned them a wild card spot. We look past that Indianapolis Colts game because the Colts are winless. There's no way we're going to lose to the Colts, and Donald Brown has an 80-yard touchdown run for a touchdown. The Titans lose that game. The Titans win the next game, win the game after that, go 9-7, miss the playoffs. I'd like to recall you to 2016, where the Tennessee Titans are at that point, I want to say they were 8-6. Yes, they were 8-6. They're going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who at that time were 2-12. The week after, they have the Houston Texans as well, which also would have been for the AFC South Championship, but first they had to take care of the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 16. The Tennessee Titans had 1 consecutive games, the last of which being in Kansas City, one of the most, and actually up until that point, the most signature win of Marcus Mariota's career and of the new Tennessee Titans era, following really drafting Marcus Mariota and heading into that, post Mike Munchak, Jeff Fisher era, the most significant win. We all presume that they'll beat the Jaguars, no problem. They get their doors blown off 38-17. Marcus Mariota breaks his leg, and that was the most painful loss as a Tennessee Titans fan that I saw since the 2008 playoff game against the Baltimore Ravens. I'd like for you to recall 2017, where the Tennessee Titans are 8-4. They have two upcoming games against NFC West opponents who are not good. They have the Arizona Cardinals one week, and they have, with Blaine Gabbert as quarterback, and they have the San Francisco 49ers the next. We presume that they're going to win at least one of them, and they do not. Now, last year, things were a little bit different. Last year, the Titans were instead, I want to say, 5-6. And they won 4 straight games. They beat the New York Jets. They beat the Washington Redskins. They beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. They beat the New York Giants. They won 4 straight games. Week 17 against the Indianapolis Colts, Marcus Mariota can't play. He misses the game. They missed the playoffs. Now, in 2017, they made the playoffs despite those losses to the NFC West. But what we've constantly seen with this team over the years is that these games that they should win down the stretch in order to secure a playoff berth, or at least get closer to securing a playoff berth, they don't show up. And now they're going up against the Oakland Raiders. And I looked very closely at the Oakland Raiders this week for preparing for this Titan Up Thursday. And I see, okay, the Tennessee Titans defense is ranked 20th. The Raiders are ranked 21st. That's interesting. The Tennessee Titans run defense is ranked 10th. The Raiders run defense is ranked 11th. The Tennessee Titans passing offense isn't close to the Raiders passing offense. Their running game, the Titans have that edge, but even that is actually more close than I'd like to believe. And the Oakland Raiders are coming off of 2 horrible losses where their season is on the line. And the Tennessee Titans season is on the line as well. But desperation plays into the favor of the Oakland Raiders. Oh, I'm worried. This is trap game written all over it, ladies and gentlemen. Now, maybe I'm being a negative Nancy. Maybe. But I have some battered fan syndrome indeed, and deservedly so. Because you just got to look back at that Indianapolis Colts game in 2011, at that Jacksonville Jaguars 2016, Arizona Cardinals, and San Francisco 49ers 2017, although they still somehow made the playoffs that year, thank God, and they won the playoff game, but still. You just got to look back at those, and you got to be a little cautious. You got to be a little worried. That's all I ask, okay? Now, I think we'll win this football game. I think ultimately it will be close. And again, we're also traveling cross country. Where again, that was a problem in 2017. Traveling to Arizona, traveling to San Francisco to take on these West Coast teams late in the season. That was a problem for us. So I think it's going to be close. I think the Raiders are going to give it all that they have. This season is absolutely on the line. They cannot afford to drop this one because then the Titans will have the tiebreaker over them when it comes to these playoff-breaking scenarios. And there are still scenarios, though, where the Raiders could actually lose this game and then beat us in a tiebreaker with the Colts, which is actually unfortunate, but it's actually the case because the Raiders beat the Colts. But this is a game that worries me, people. So we look at this Oakland Raiders team. The absolute key to their offense right now, they have 2. And that's Josh Jacobs at running back, and they have Darren Waller at tight end. So we look at Josh Jacobs. This guy is incredible for a rookie running back. Another Alabama running back. Not as good as Derrick Henry, of course. But another Alabama running back that runs hard, and they have their offense running through him. And they also have DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard as nice receiving backs beyond him. We have to stop these running backs. Jayon Brown and Rashaan Evans have to be active in this football game. They have to be running around the field and stopping these running backs. They are dynamic. They have the receiving backs, and they also have, the workhorse back in Josh Jacobs. But then Darren Waller at tight end. This guy is standing at 6'6", like 265 pounds. Who is going to be able to match up against him consistently? Now, I hope Jayon Brown is capable of that, but he doesn't have the height for that. No one really has the height for that. I mean, in a 6'6" tight end, that's difficult to cover. So that's just a problem in and of itself. But I do think John Brown will do good enough of a job. You just got to slow Darren Waller down. I mean, he is one of the top tight ends in the league right now. He's carrying a couple of my fantasy teams because, the tight end position was so hard to find coming into this fantasy season. If you picked up Darren Waller, you're absolutely winning there. So, yeah, Darren Waller absolutely has to be stopped. Jaron Brown hopefully can do a good job covering him. Put Amani Hooker on him. Put some speed on him. But more importantly, more than speed, I think you just need height on him. Because he is athletic. He does have some decent speed to him, don't get me wrong. But I think height is the biggest problem because Derek Carr knows how to high point his receivers. That is something he absolutely knows how to do. He has nice touch when he throws the football, a nice touch to his throws. So he knows how to high point his receivers, how to throw balls to where only his receivers can get it. And that's a big concern when you're talking about facing a 6'6" Darren Waller and their number one wide receiver in Terrell Williams. And you look at this situation right now. Let's look at the injury situation for the Tennessee Titans. As we get into the news, Tremaine Brock was signed off waivers as Adoree Jackson and LaShawn Sims are likely to be out for this football game. I think Adoree Jackson is going to be out. He missed Wednesday's practice. He missed Thursday's practice. It's hard to get a read on how healthy he is, especially right now. I mean, no one covers this Tennessee Titans football team well at all. Jim White is the best we got, and he's in-house. Okay, so we don't know if Adoree Jackson is going to play. But just getting a sense from the fact that they're not saying anything, the fact that they're being so uptight about Adoree Jackson and what injury he's facing, and the fact that he was asked questions about his injury, and he just said, well, I'm just praying, and I'm just happy, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He was having some very vague quotes. I'm worried about Adoree Jackson's status for Sunday. Luckily, though, the Raiders only have two wide receivers. They have Terrell Williams and Hunter Renfrow, and that's it. That's literally all they have. I mean, not another wide receiver. I don't think another wide receiver has even over 300 receiving yards for them this season outside of those two. And even Renfrow barely has over 300, and Terrell Williams missed some games, so he's sitting at 400 or 500. So they literally have two wide receivers. Stopping their wide receivers is not a very difficult task. So luckily, if there's any game where you do not have a cornerback or you don't have your one of your starting quarterbacks, this is one of them because Hunter Renfrow is a slot wide receiver at this point in this league. You can easily put, again, Logan Ryan can pretty much blanket him for most of the game. And then, you're looking at Terrell Williams on the outside. He is a problem. He can kill you. He can hurt you. So when Logan Ryan is not on him, when Logan Ryan is in the slot covering Hunter Renfrow, then you will have to call upon, at this point, Tremaine Brock. I mean, Tremaine Brock or Ty Smith. Now, it just depends on how comfortable you feel with Tremaine Brock, who was claimed off waivers. But I like Tremaine Brock. There's a guy that's now a 10-year veteran in this league, former Arizona Cardinal. The Titan picked him up off waivers this week, and I think he's going to come in and do a good job. And again, remember, I wasn't too upset. I'm going to say I was very upset. But I was perplexed as to why we didn't draft a corner in this past draft. It was an obvious need to me, and you're seeing why now. We needed more corners to me, and Ty Smith has done fine when he's in the lineup, so he can cover, Terrell Williams as well. We just got to stop those three guys. You're talking about Darren Waller, you're talking about Terrell Williams and Hunter Renfrow. Renfrow's not going to break you. He's not going to kill you. At best, he might have an 80-yard game, but you're not really worried about that. So I'm not too concerned about that aspect, but it's just something to consider. So those are the main three options for the Raiders, and again, those running backs that you will definitely have to stop. Derek Carr is fine. I'll even say pretty good, but he's not going to break the game, especially not with this wide receiver core. That's just not their move. They're going to run the football first and foremost and ask Derek Carr to make some throws. In fact, very similar to what we asked Ryan Tannehill to do. So it's going to be, there's going to be, a lot of similarities between these two teams. So that's going to be interesting to watch as well. But I'm not too worried about Derek Carr. You look at this defense. So this Tennessee Titans defense right now, or this Oakland Raiders defense, it has its vulnerabilities. Maurice Hurst, that is definitely their big guy up front. They drafted him last year, had a great rookie year, is continuing that for the most part this season. Their secondary is, very vulnerable, though. They have some guys that they've just been, trying to develop along, that they strived along from other teams. Daryl Worley's there, LaMarcus Joyner, the former LA Ram. But there are definitely vulnerabilities in their secondary and definitely their linebacker core with Tahir Whitehead, and they used to have Vontaze Burfict before that went to hell. So I'm not really worried about the Raiders defense, but it's just funny to me that I look at the Raiders defense and I'm not impressed at all. and yet they're ranked right next to us statistically speaking. The only difference is we do much better in terms of passer rating. We give up an 88 pass rating. The Raiders give up a 103. But in terms of yardage, yeah, we're right next to the Oakland Raiders. Like, we give up the same amount of yards per game by the Oakland Raiders. The difference is like within 2 yards. So it's funny to me that I look at the Oakland Raiders defense, I see almost, no real talent that I'm really excited to look at, except for maybe Max Crosby, Maurice Hurst, and a little Daryl Worley. And I look at our defense, I see more names that I like, and yet we're right next to them statistically. What's up with that? But anyway, that's the case. So I think there's definitely a lot of vulnerabilities in this defense. I'd like to say, hey, we can get Jonnu Smith involved. He's gone the past 2 weeks without a catch. People are asking me to, change my tune on Jonnu Smith. He hasn't caught a ball in the past 2 weeks. So, what are you talking about? But and he had a critical penalty last week as well. And also he's had critical penalties, not even a critical penalty. He gave up a critical sack last week, and he's had critical penalties this season. So if you can get Jonnu Smith involved, because against this linebacker core, he can definitely be able to take advantage of some of the vulnerabilities that they have in their linebacker core. But you just never know what you're going to get from Jonnu Smith. So you're just going to have to continue to use your wide receivers, I guess, continue to use your wide receivers. Not much of that's really going on, as A.J. Brown had 45 receiving yards last week, and Corey Davis had 23. And Adam Humphries had 1 catch. Corey Davis and Adam Humphries had 1 catch each last week. This is the thing with this offense. Here, I'm going negative again. I'm sorry. But, everyone is so convinced that our offense has changed the guard, that things are looking up offensively. I'm just not buying it. Because I still look at A.J. Brown and Corey Davis and Adam Humphries, and none of them are going to hit the statistical projections I had out for them, except for A.J. Brown. But Corey Davis is well going to underachieve. Adam Humphries, the same thing. I like to see Khalif Raymond get the over-the-top touchdown that he got. But mainly our thing right now is the run game. And I'm not taking anything away from Ryan Tannehill. Do not get me wrong. I'm not taking anything away. Ryan Tannehill is doing great. He's leading the NFL in passer rating, qualified passer rating right now. That's a fantastic statistic. But we're a running football team, people. Point blank, period. Our offense is not fixed. This passing game is still not prolific at all. It's still one of the worst passing offenses in the league. We had 2 nice games against the Chargers and the Bucs. Everyone has nice passing games against the Chargers and the Bucs, especially when the Chargers did not have Derwin James and what was his name? Melvin Ingram, I think, was also hurt at the time. So I'd like to say that, hey, we can take advantage of these quarterbacks. We can hit these wide receivers. We can get Corey Davis or A.J. Brown for a 100-plus yard game, but I need to see it because we just don't see it. Even with Ryan Tannehill in the lineup, we just don't see it. But we just, number one, had to continue to run the football, right? That's our move. Derrick Henry, he's our workhorse. He's our guy. That's the guy that we have to feed. It's December, and it's not going to be, cold in Oakland. But still, it's still difficult to tackle Derrick Henry this time of year. So just run Derrick Henry. They're going to come out with, I'm sure John Gruden's going to come up with a lot of, looks in order to be able to slow down and stop Derrick Henry. So when that happens, let's run play action. Let's take advantage of their young defensive line because they're very inexperienced. And let's be able to run some nice screens as well. And then we'll be able to have, top off or have some nice plays that can, top off for some nice touchdowns. So there are definitely a lot of vulnerabilities that we can take advantage of here. So hopefully we can see that. And this should be a Tennessee Titans victory. But again, people, I'm afraid of this matchup. I really, really am. I'm having shades. I'm having flashbacks. I'm having throwbacks. I'm having nightmares to those previous years. It's looking like it all over again. We are more talented than the Oakland Raiders. Make no doubt about it. We are more talented than the Oakland Raiders. But we were also more talented than the Colts at the time. We were also more talented than the 49ers and the Cardinals at the time. We were also more talented than the Jacksonville Jaguars at the time. And despite the more talent that we have over the Raiders, we're so close to them statistically. It's ridiculous. And in fact, they're ahead of us in terms of passing yards. But they're right next to us in terms of defense, except for we're much better in terms of, actually defending the quarterback, in terms of actually preventing quarterbacks from having a high passer rating, from throwing touchdowns and causing interceptions. Yeah, we're much better at that. But in terms of letting you move the football, we'll let you move the football. And we'll let you put up some points. So it's a scary matchup. I have concerns. I think we'll get it done. My official prediction is Tennessee Titans 23, Oakland Raiders 21. I think the Tennessee Titans do get it done. but I think it will be by the skin of our teeth, and I think it will be the Tennessee Titans yet again being down in the first half. I think they're going to come out on us. They're going to sneak up on us. They're going to take advantage of some of our early looks, and we're going to have to wake up in the second half yet again and then pull out a victory, but we shall see. So yeah, I already discussed the Tremaine Brock signing, again off the waivers. I liked that. Also discussed, Adam Humphries also missed Wednesday and Thursday's practice, but I expect for him to play. It was also interesting to read on the injury report. We had Derrick Henry and Corey Davis who missed practice. Now, I think Derrick Henry actually had an injury that was listed. Corey Davis did not. Interesting, because I think we need practice this week. I really want our guys to be on top of things this week. So if Corey Davis comes out, especially Corey Davis right now, because Corey Davis, who's been dropping passes, why is he getting a day off? This guy needs to be practicing more than anyone in the wide receiver corps. This guy needs to be catching passes consistently. So I didn't understand that. So if Corey Davis comes out on Sunday and he's dropping more passes, yeah, that's going to be a problem for me. Okay, so that's another aspect to look out for. So outside of that, let's look into some of the playoff scenarios I was looking at earlier. So I had the MJ Take podcast this week, which you should check out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and also here on YouTube.com. And when I was doing that, I went through the ESPN playoff machine. And there are multiple scenarios. And here's the number one thing that we're looking at. I do not believe that we will win the AFC South, okay? I just don't believe that. But our path to winning the AFC South is simple enough. Win out. Okay, it's simple enough. Now, if you don't want to win out, if you want to lose a game, potentially, and still win the AFC South, then you're essentially looking at losing the New Orleans Saints game so that you keep your conference record intact. Actually, that wouldn't even matter. What am I talking about? Excuse me. What you're looking at, in order to win the division at 10-6, you'd have to lose, again, a game. Probably not to the Texans. You would still have to sweep the Texans because right now the Texans have swept the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we will not sweep a team in this division except for the Houston Texans at this point. So no matter what, unless if we sweep the Texans will have a better division record than us because they swept the Jacksonville Jaguars and we did not. Okay, we both split the Indianapolis Colts. So the only way we get in at 10-6 is if the Texans lose a game outside of us, or if we sweep the Texans and we have a better or similar conference record. But let's not get into that. That's we'll get closer to that if that scenario looks more likely. So just in terms of the AFC South, you look at the Houston Texans' upcoming matchups, and let me pull up their schedule. I honestly think they're going to win out. I told you all I thought they were going to beat New England. They did. This week they faced the Denver Broncos in Houston. I expect them to win that matchup. They faced the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Week 16 at Tampa Bay. I expect them to win. I expect them to win that. Although they have shown an ability to lose some games like this, but that would only be their fifth loss of the season. So we're going to have to sweep the Texans to win the division. There is no other viable scenario. It's going to come down to sweeping the Texans. If you sweep the Texans, then you have the head-to-head percentage over them. You make the playoffs. So that's the only scenario in which we win the AFC South. And people, I'm just not buying it. I'm sorry. I really wish I could. But, dude, did you watch the Texans against the Patriots? They're damn good. I mean, the way Deshaun Watson has them playing right now, they're damn good. And if you look at their defense, yes, personnel-wise, you look at their defense, and they have holes, they have issues. They're missing J.J. Watt, but they do enough. Drummer Cannell gets the most out of their defense. They have guys like Bradley Roby and Bernard McKinney and Zach Cunningham playing to the absolute most of their ability. And they're not going to be a poor defense for the rest of the year. And against the Broncos, the Bucks, you're going to bet on the Broncos or the Bucks to come through for us? I'm not betting on that. So you're going to have to sweep the Texans, and I just don't see it. You know, we were able to beat the Texans with Blaine Gabbert somehow. I don't know how. That game was still a shock and a mystery to me last season. But they remember that, and they hate our football team. And, you know, we've had such problems guarding them over the top. Consistently, DeAndre Hopkins beats us over the top. Consistently, Will Fuller beats us over the top. And now they're throwing in Kenny Stills as well. So, I just don't see how we're sweeping the Texans. And I even think saying that we're beating the Texans in Nashville, I think we're even stretching to say that. I mean, I think that will be our most impressive victory of the season. If we beat, maybe even more so than the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, I think the Chiefs are better than the Texans, but I think it's more impressive for us to beat the Texans than it is for us to beat the Chiefs. I honestly do believe that. Because we've had, nice performances against the Chiefs historically, especially in the recent history. Texans, not so much. I think it is more of a stretch to say that we are going to beat the Texans in Nashville than it is to say we're going to beat the Chiefs in Nashville. I really do believe that. Just looking at our recent history. So I'm just not buying the AFC South. But if you want to look at the AFC wildcard, okay, I'm buying that. I'm buying AFC South stock. It's going to come down to us, the Indianapolis Colts, the Oakland Raiders, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, and that's the big one. The Oakland Raiders, you can almost eliminate them this week by defeating them. Okay, if you defeat the Oakland Raiders, they're all but done. They still have one scenario they can get in, and that scenario is if we tie with the Oakland Raiders and the Indianapolis Colts at 9-7. If that happens, the Colts break the tiebreaker over us because they beat us, but the Raiders beat the tiebreaker over the Colts because they beat them. So that's the one scenario where the Raiders will still get in. But if we beat the Raiders this week, they're all but done. That's the only scenario realistically that they can get in. Our biggest enemies for the division, more so though, are the Colts and the Steelers. The problem with the Steelers is they have us beat in terms of conference record right now. They are one game ahead in conference record, so we have to catch up to them in conference record. And then the next tiebreaker down would be win-loss percentage in common games. We're tied there. Then it goes down to, and I'm presuming if they lose to the Buffalo Bills, then we're tied there. And then we go on to the next tiebreaker, which would be strength of victory, which we have right now, and I assume we will have, because we're pretty far ahead in that category. So when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have 3 more remaining AFC games. Okay, we need them to lose more AFC games than us. Either 2 or 1. Betting on 2, not going to happen. More likely 1. We tie for them in conference record. Then we have the strength of victory tiebreaker over them in that final category. So they have the Buffalo Bills in Pittsburgh. They have the New York Jets in New York. And then they have the Baltimore Ravens Week 17 in Baltimore. Before you write off that Baltimore Ravens game, I am currently projecting for that game not to matter for the Baltimore Ravens. And that will be true if the Ravens win out up into that point, and if the Patriots lose one more game. And in my scenario, the scenario I believe to be most likely, the Chiefs will beat the Patriots this week, giving the Ravens a 1-game lead over the Patriots with a tiebreaker. Both teams win in weeks 15 and 16. You go to week 17 where the Ravens still are a game ahead and they have the tiebreaker. That week 17 game against the Pittsburgh Steelers does not matter to them. They benched everybody. The Steelers, to me, win that game. Mike Tomlin, playoffs on the line. If that's the case, they win that game. So before you say, oh, they're going to lose to the Baltimore Ravens week 17, that doesn't matter. Be careful. That game may not mean anything. Now, if I'm wrong and the Patriots beat the Chiefs and the Patriots beat the Bills and the Patriots beat, I want to say, the Jets again, then they, week 17, I want to say they also face the Dolphins. Then that game will matter for the Ravens week 17. They'll need to play in order to ensure that they get the number 1 seed over the Patriots. They're going to care about that. They're going to play. They're going to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers if they need to. So just look out for those scenarios. And even that game might have some upset ability, but I really wouldn't count for that. So I personally believe right now the Steelers against the Bills, and they're hosting the Bills, right? I think that they lose that game. But that is a 50-50 game. That can go either way, and that's going to determine a lot. This week, they go face the Arizona Cardinals. Now, it's not going to help us in terms of conference record if they lose against the Cardinals, but they might lose to the Cardinals, then lose to the Bills, then, lose to whatever team after that, the Jets, and then they're just out of the running anyway. So still room for the Steelers to lose, But I think the more likely route and the more viable route is for us to look at the conference record against them eventually and then determine what the tiebreaker is there. But that is also a scenario. Maybe the Steelers just go 8-8. But at this point, they're 7-5. I'm pretty sure they're going to finish 9-7. I'm pretty sure of that. And if they finish 10-6, then we're screwed. Because if they finish 10-6, then they won two of those last, at least they won two of those AFC games. And we're almost screwed there. There's one more case, but I'll get to that in a moment. Then you look at the Indianapolis Colts. So the Indianapolis Colts, I think they're going to lose this week in Tampa Bay. I think they're still banged up. And by the way, a lot of people were saying, when I said in my Colts game recap, I still believe this. If T.Y. Hilton plays, we lose against the Indianapolis Colts. And people said, well, we had injuries too, MJ. We were missing, we missed Adoree Jackson for a decent amount of the game, and we're missing Malcolm Butler. Okay, come on, guys. If we were missing, because this is the equivalent. If we were missing Derrick Henry and Corey Davis and Delanie Walker, that'd be our excuse all day long. Like, all day long, we're using that excuse. You do realize the Colts are missing Marlon Mack and T.Y. Hilton and Eric Ebron. Now, we're missing Delanie Walker right now, but he wasn't doing much on the field anyway. But there's a difference between missing T.Y. Hilton, Eric Ebron, and Marlon Mack, and us missing Malcolm Butler or Cameron Wake. Like, the Colts' injuries were more severe. Like, let's just be honest, people. Especially when you look at the history between us and the Indianapolis Colts, where T.Y. Hilton kills us consistently. Like, that's just not equal, people. Let's just be real. If we were missing Derrick Henry, period, we'd use that excuse all day long. Can you imagine us running Dion Lewis all game long? Oh, that's our excuse all day. We lost that game because Derrick Henry was out. Forget about it for missing Derrick Henry and Corey Davis and Delanie Walker. Forget about it. So, come on. I that's just my thing there. But anyway, so I think with all the injuries the Colts are having, I still think that they lose against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week. I think they're honestly going to lose that game. And then they go to New Orleans and they face the New Orleans Saints, and I think that they lose that game. So I think they're going to be out of it in 2 weeks. Now, let's say I'm wrong. Let's say they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think we all agree they're going to lose to New Orleans. So that's their 7th loss. We do not want to tie with them because, let me check actually. I'm pretty sure on this, but let me back this up. I'm pretty sure they have a better conference record than us too. I'm pretty sure about that, but I'd have to check that. But the Colts give us problems on tiebreakers. I do know that. But look at that last 2 matchups. They also host the Panthers and they go to Jacksonville. I just don't see the Colts going 3-1 with this schedule. It is certainly possible. I just don't buy it. At Tampa Bay, at New Orleans, at Jacksonville, and even hosting the Panthers, they're going to lose 2 of those games. I don't think the Colts are still certainly in it. But I just don't believe that to be the case. So I would still look for, and also, yeah, this is something I forgot, and someone just brought up in the chat. The problem is with the Colts is that not that the conference record, but the division record. Because if the Colts go 9-7, it will be because they beat the Jaguars week 17. Because they will lose to the Saints. So if they go 9-7, it will be because they beat the Jaguars week 17. And if they beat the Jaguars week 17, they have a better division record than us. They have the tiebreaker over us. They get in over us. So that's the only scenario. So that's the scenario to look out for, but I'm not buying it. So I think it all comes down to us versus the Steelers. So root against the Steelers. That's your move. Hope that they lose against the Cardinals. Hope they lose out, honestly. But number one, the biggest one, hope that they lose against the Buffalo Bills in week 15. And then hope that they lose either to the Jets or to the Ravens week 17. And if that happens, then we go 9-7, we get in. And I do believe we will go 9-7. And I'm almost 100% sure on that. I'm almost 100% sure on that we will be 9-7 at this point. There is a potential for 10-6 though. The last scenario I'm going to throw on you guys. And no one's going to like this. But honestly, I like this scenario for us. How about we win in Oakland? And just hold on. Hold on to your horses for a second now. And then we lose to the Texans. Now, wait a minute. This is blasphemy. This is blasphemy. MJ, what are you talking about, losing to the Texans in Nashville? Well, ladies and gentlemen, if we lose to the Texans in Nashville, that next game against the New Orleans Saints will be a must-win game for us, and a game that I think we'd win in that scenario and circumstance. Then week 17, the Texans will have already won the AFC South. They will rest their starters because they will not be in contention for a bye week. And then we can go beat Houston and make the playoffs. We get in, and then we either go face Houston or Kansas City. Now, Houston might be petty and still play their starters because they don't want to see their divisional matchup or rival in the playoffs. That's possible. But that's a scenario I'm looking at more likely or more often, and I'm saying that's kind of likely. Because, again, I'm not sleeping on this Texans matchup. And I look at the Texans and Saints, and I look at that combo, and even just the trio of the Oakland, Houston, New Orleans. Man, like just even those three, I think asking to win all three of those is just too much to ask for. I just, especially already coming off of how hot we are, like we've been getting some breaks. We got a break against Kansas City. We got a break against LA, the LA Chargers. We got some breaks. And even this week, we got another block punt. And some more missed field goals. We've been getting some breaks. We're going to win the next 3 games. But, if we have to drop one, maybe it is against the Saints. Because then we have an easy Week 17 game as opposed to having to beat the Texans Week 15. Then Week 16, if you beat the Saints, then the Texans are giving you their all in that Week 17 game. And the Steelers could still be in the running for 10-6 because although I think the Steelers will go 9-7, they're still in the running for 10-6. They could still win their Week 17 matchup. Then all of a sudden, you're 10-6 and you still miss the playoffs. So there's a lot to look at. And things are gonna tighten. There's a lot of scenarios. I just went through a bunch of scenarios, just talking this video, and things are gonna narrow as we get closer. Things are gonna get closer and closer and tighten up, no pun intended. And then we'll be looking at more, concrete routes. But that's just some things to think about. So a lot of scenarios, a lot of stuff I just shoved down your throat there. But it's just nice to be in the playoff race yet again. It is feeling such like a 9-7 season yet again, which is frustrating. But at least we're in the playoff hunt. And if we get in, I'm confident we can go to Kansas City and win. Houston, not so much. But you know what? What's funny? I actually like our chances against Houston in the playoffs more than I do the regular season. Because I saw Deshaun Watson, and I've consistently seen Houston struggle in the playoffs. Deshaun Watson was awful in Houston in the playoffs last season. So for some reason, I'm actually more confident if you're telling me we're facing Houston in the wild card, and we're just going out saying, hey, we got nothing to lose. Everyone thinks we're the underdog. Let's just go see what happens as opposed to regular season. I feel like Houston chokes in the playoffs. I think they'll do it again this season. I like our odds in Houston in the playoffs. Week 17, I don't like our odds. Funny. I know it's odd, but I think it's true. Then you sneak up on them, and then we'd have to see what happens against the Ravens and/or Patriots. But, I don't know. So there's still hope. There is hope. I'm not holding on to that hope. I'm being realistic. But that's just something to think about. So ultimately, if you're asking me today, I do think we missed the playoffs just by a hair. I think we ultimately tied with the Steelers, but the Steelers have a better conference record than us, and we missed the playoffs. But that's just by a hair. And things are going to, again, tighten up and become concrete in the upcoming weeks, and we'll see what happens. But that's just what I think. So We've gone a little longer than I wanted to today, but that's fun. It happens. If you have any questions for me in the chat, ask them right now. And for the next 5 minutes, I will answer questions. And then we shall get out of here on this edition of Tighten Up Thursday. So any question in the chat, at me, at SportsFan Entertainment in the chat. If it's not highlighted in orange, I probably won't see it. So make sure to at me, at SportsFan Entertainment, for me to answer those questions. And I still see some people in the chat saying I'm not a real Titans fan. And again, I guess I just love wasting my time then. I guess I just love it. Oh, I must love wasting my time, man. I'm a Titans fan. I'm a battered Titans fan. But I am a Titans fan indeed, man. Trust me on that. All right, so let's see what some people are saying in the chat before I answer the questions, or before, let me say, before some questions come in. Ray O'Brien asks, winner Derrick Henry versus Texans defense, how's that go? I mean, I don't know. Because the Texans defense has just given us problems. I mean, the Texans have always had, well, not always. They've struggled against the run, and yet we haven't been successful against them running the football. So I don't buy that that's an automatic lock, that Derrick Henry's just going to dominate them and that's just going to be the end of the story. I'm not buying that. Theodore Brown says, would you take Cam over Tannehill? Right now, no. I mean, how can you take anyone over Tannehill? He's leading the league in passer rating. He's leading the league in yards per attempt. And by the way, this is again why I'm also trying to be cautious when it comes to Tannehill, and I think a lot of people should be a little more cautious. Is there any way in hell that's going to continue? That Tannehill is going to continue to lead the league in yards per attempt by half a yard? It is him with 9.1 yards per attempt. The next person is, I want to say, Lamar Jackson with 8.6. He's in the league in qualified pass rating at 113.9. That's hard to sustain. So let's just be a little careful there. So right now, no, I would not take Cam over Tannehill. For next season, also no, because it is a risk. At this point, you just have to stick with Tannehill. But I'm just trying to warn people on that. Matthew 2015-35 DeSauce says, I'm a little late, but how do you feel about the cornerback situation? It's deteriorating right now, but right now we're facing a team that only has 2 wide receivers, Terrell Williams and Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow is a limited wide receiver, nothing more than a slot weapon at this point, and not a very good one. And Terrell Williams, albeit, a tall, physical wide receiver, that's still only one, really viable weapon that I'm really afraid of. The tight end position at Darren Waller, that's the other thing. So I think we're facing the best opponent this week in terms of an opponent that does not have wide receivers. So I think we're okay right now. However, when we go up against the Texans, who have DeAndre Hopkins, Kenny Stills, and Will Fuller, it's going to be a damn problem. And that's why that's why I'm holding my breath before I say that we're easily going to beat the Houston Texans the week after this one. But let's take care of this one. Michael Freeman says, as SportsFan Entertainment, what's your predictions on our final regular season record? And do you think we'll go to the playoffs? If so, how far? I just said this, but I'll say it again. 9-7. If you ask me right now, with the scenarios I've gone through, and the scenario I think is most likely, I think we miss out on the playoffs to the Steelers, because I think week 17, the Ravens will not care. And the Steelers will beat the Ravens, and they'll have the conference record over us. That's the scenario that I see right now. I hope it doesn't come to fruition, but that's what I see right now. But again, the one case that would beat that is actually if we lose to the Texans in week 15. The Texans don't care in week 17. We beat the Texans then. We beat the Saints week 16. We go 10-6. We make the playoffs. And more I'm thinking that might be a better scenario for us, because that will wake us up to win those last 2 games, as opposed to us having to beat the Saints and the Texans the last 2 weeks. I don't know. That we can debate on that, but I think that might be easier for us. All right, Aaron Foster says, what do you think of the Tremaine Brock waiver signing? I talked about this earlier, but yeah, it's a good signing. I like Tremaine Brock. He's going to come in and do a fine job. The substantial beard as SportsFan Entertainment, would running the table these last 4 games signal the end of the same old Titans era if it happened? I'd have to see how it happened exactly. People are saying, people have, been commenting on me whenever I'm a little negative, saying, we don't have to dominate every game in order for us to be a good football team. This is the NFL, you're going to have close games. And trust me, I understand that. I always say that. Literally, dude, that was literally my stance in 2017. We were barely beating every single team. And I was like, guys, it's okay. We're winning games. The problem is, though, I need to see more. I don't need to see every week being a dominant victory, but I need to see more dominant victories. And last week doesn't count. I know we won by 2 touchdowns. The Colts were driving on us with 6 minutes left. I thought they were going to win the game at that point. So, that does not count. The only one that counted is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I just need to see more of that. If you show me 2 more of those, let's say 2 of these upcoming 4 of those dominant victories like we saw against the Jacksonville Jaguars, okay, the same old Tennessee Titans era is over. If they barely beat, if they won out having barely beat the Texans and the, and the Raiders and the Saints, I would still probably say yes. Actually, because that's just still really impressive. That is really impressive to beat the Saints and the Texans. That is really impressive. So I'd buy that. I actually would. I actually would. So I'll revise my statement. Because, yeah, the Saints and the Texans, being as strong as they are, that would still be the end of the era. So, yes, I will say if they do win out, even if those are close victories, even if they're a little fraudulent, I would buy into that being the era of the same old Tennessee Titans. Minecraft God 69 says, you think Dak Prescott would become the highest paid quarterback in the league by next year? Yes, I do. And, he'll probably be quickly beat by the next quarterback, but there will be a moment in time where Dak Prescott will be the highest paid quarterback in the league. And with him leading the league in passing right now, I think that pretty much solidifies that. We had a question from Jack Hardy who said, at Sports Fan Entertainment, what are your top 3 draft/free agent priorities heading into the offseason? Well, the thing is, right now, we don't have a quarterback under contract. We don't have a running back under contract. We do not have... Those are the main 2. And then we also don't have Logan Ryan. And also, I think, Ben Jones and Jack Conklin. So we don't have a right tackle and then one of our starting cornerbacks. So there's a lot that are currently upcoming free agents. So based on those, it's quarterback 1. It would be right tackle 2. It'd be running back 3. Now, they could re-sign Tannehill, Henry, and Conklin, and that would no longer be the case. But until then, that's the order. It'd be quarterback 1, right tackle 2, running back 3. D. Davis 24 says, at Sports Fan Entertainment, if Mike Vrabel wins out, does your opinion change on him? My opinion on him is neutral. I think he's pretty good at leading men. He's a great leader of men. He gets the guys motivated. He gets them bought into the culture. He's a horrible... game decision guy. Cannot manage the game at all. Horrible at game management. Not great at time management. That's not changing on him. He is what he is. Can he win a Super Bowl? I think he could. Will it take a superior offensive or defensive coordinator? I also think it will. But I do think he can win a Super Bowl. I do believe that. I do think he can. I just think we're going to need a superstar offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, neither of which we have right now. Patrick Motes says, who are you looking at for a new OC? Well, that conversation is now over. With this offense having improved over the last 4 or 5 weeks, there will no longer be a new offensive coordinator in Tennessee. Shades of Terry Robisky all over again. Where we did well in 2016, we kept him, and then 2017, things went to hell. So just look out for that. But with the way the offense has improved, and I mainly mean the run game, the passing game has improved in efficiency only, not prolifically in terms of passing yards, not in terms of play design, not in terms of, anything that really indicates that we've really turned the corner there. But because the run game is better, Arthur Smith will be back, and that conversation has now ended. And remember to @ me at Sports Fan Entertainment. I need to see your comment highlighted. But let's see. I see some people discussing whether or not Tom Brady is washed up. He's not washed up. If you watch the game on, Sunday night, he's not washed up. The receivers are too bad. And I know, the stigma has been Brady can make mediocre wide receivers great, and he can. These aren't mediocre wide receivers, bro. These are awful wide receivers. These are wide receivers that should not be in the league. Jacoby Myers should not be in the league. N'Keal Harry is one of the, it's too early to say on him. He's been injured. N'Keal Harry's been injured. And that was so Philip Dorsett was hanging on a thread before the Patriots picked them up. The receivers are awful. It's the difference between elevating Deion Branch and elevating Jacoby Myers. There's a difference between elevating Julian Edelman and elevating this clown. What's that clown's name? I can't even remember his name. I mean, the Patriots wide receivers are that irrelevant right now. I can't even remember a lot of their names right now. So there's a difference there. They're just too bad for Brady to elevate. And we saw when Antonio Brown was out there, he scored a touchdown. He looked great. So the receivers are just too bad for Brady to be able to elevate them. They just need to get better talent in there. Gary Sanderson said, "As sports fan entertainment, Jason Garrett versus Mike Vrabel, who would you rather have?" Honestly, that's a damn toss-up. I think they're different. Trust me, they have their differences, but I think they're the same category. They're fine. Are they going to win you a Super Bowl? Unless they have a great coordinator, probably not. And someone just brought up Mohamed Sanu. Yeah, Mohamed Sanu is not very good. I don't know why they traded with a second-round pick for Mohamed Sanu. Ridiculous. But anyway, yeah. And then we'll answer this one lastly. What do you think about this Brady to the Titans stuff? I mean, it's possible, but with the way Ryan Tannehill's playing right now, I think it's safe to presume he'll be the quarterback next season unless if he completely falls off in the last 4 games. And this is a viable scenario because he did have his late game problems with the Miami Dolphins in seasons past, so I'm also looking out for that. I don't think it's going to happen at this point, but it's something to look out for. So just look out for that. But in terms of Brady to the Titans, if they let go of Ryan Tannehill, if they do not franchise him, I think it's a viable scenario that we do need to look out for, but we'll worry about that this offseason. So there you go. This is the first edition of Tighten Up Thursdays. I'll be back next Thursday. I think I might push it back to 6:30 Central. But yeah, thank you all for joining me. If you have any comments, thoughts, whatever, comment those down below. Make sure to like the video if you enjoy the content. I'll be back on Sunday after the game to recap Tennessee Titans versus the Oakland Raiders. And as always, remember to tighten up. Until next time, this has been MJ of Sports Fan Entertainment, and I'm out. See you all later.